What's up, guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Brandon Smith. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending a little time with me. I appreciate it so much. Well, we've finally almost made it out of February, my least favorite month of the year. And since I do not want to talk about this godforsaken page on the calendar for one more lousy minute, today's case takes place in March. But I assume you didn't come here to listen to me talk about my favorite months and my least favorite months and seasonal discretion. So without further ado, let's get into the case already. God, it's cold outside. It's so cold outside. The day is Monday, March 2nd, 1998. The song, My Heart Will Go On by Canadian icon and institution Celine Dion is #1 on the Billboard charts. The film, Titanic, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, is #1 at the box office. Yeah, Titanic was really big in 1998. Clean sweep. And tonight in Cleveland, Ohio, 765 kilometers to the northeast in Albany, New York, 19-year-old Suzanne Lyall has finished her shift at a local shopping mall. Done for the night, she boards a bus bound for her alma mater. The destination is the transit's final stop, and as the bus eases to its terminus, Suzanne departs the vehicle and disappears. This day in mystery. Monday, March 2nd, 1998, in Albany, New York is sunny and clement. With a daytime high of 3 degrees Celsius, the worst of winter is past, seemingly, and spring looms on the horizon. 19-year-old Suzanne Lyall is a sophomore at State University of New York at Albany. Suzanne, often referred to as Susie by friends and family, is a brilliant young woman. Described as the darling of the family, Suzanne graduated from Ballston Spa High School with honors in 1996. She attended post-secondary school at State University of New York at Oneonta, majoring in computer science. She didn't matriculate there long. Suzanne found the courses were insufficient to her mental ability and wanted a better challenge for herself. Therefore, she transferred to SUNY Albany in 1997. In addition to the more demanding course load, the move has ancillary benefits. She is now nearer to her longtime beau, Richard Condon. Suzanne and Richard started dating when they were in high school. Condon is quite a bit older than Suzanne and had already been attending a different college in Albany for quite some time. Now, in the lap of love, Susie studies computers by day and sells video games by night. She has a part-time job at Babbage's, the company that will become GameStop in 1999. Monday, March 2nd, 1998 is a typical day in the life of an ambitious scholar. Suzanne lives in the Colonial Quad dorms at Albany University. At 8 a.m., she begins classes for the day at school. Susie has a very important midterm exam scheduled that day, a test that she feels she must not only pass, but excel. She writes the quiz at 10 a.m. After writing the midterm, Susie completes the rest of her classes and finishes school at 4 p.m. At 4:15 p.m., she boards a bus from Albany University's North Campus for the Cross Gates Mall. Suzanne is scheduled at Babbage's that night, and she arrives at the video game store at 4:45 p.m. Her manager, aware of the importance of Susie's exam that day, asked the young sophomore how she felt she had done. Suzanne's response is underwhelming. She tells her manager that she felt she had done okay. This subdued demeanor continues throughout the course of Suzanne's shift. Babbage's closes at 9 p.m. and Susie locks the storefront to the public just past the hour. At 9:10 p.m., she departs the store. She boards a Capital District Transportation Authority bus back to campus at 9:20 p.m. The conductor takes note of the petite woman with the brown bangs as she clambers up the bus's stairs. At 9:45 p.m., the public conveyance reaches Collins Circle on the campus of Albany University. A friend of Suzanne is seated at the extreme rear of the transportation vehicle. She watches on as Susie exits the bus in front of her but loses track of her collegiate mate as the young woman vanishes behind the mechanical doors. Suzanne Lyall is never seen again. Suzanne Lyall and Richard Condon had a system. On nights where Susie worked late, she would phone or email Rich after arriving home so that her boyfriend would know that she was safe. On March 2nd, 1998, Suzanne never wrote this email or made this call. Condon was worried for his girlfriend's well-being. He sent emails and called the dorm multiple times, but Susie never answered. The following day, he called Suzanne's parents, Doug and Mary Lyall, to tell them that their daughter had not returned to her dorm the night before, and he didn't know where she was now. Doug and Mary, unaware of the urgency of Suzanne's disappearance, calls the Albany University campus police instead of the state police, a decision that will cost the investigation dearly. The campus police told the worried parents that brief absences were not uncommon for college students, so they should not worry, as it was likely that Susie would reappear soon. Despite the assurances, Doug and Mary Lyall do worry. Suzanne was not a risk taker. She didn't party, drink alcohol, or do drugs, and it was very unlike the reliable student to deviate from her routine and become inaccessible. On March 4th, a campus police officer visits one of Susie's classes in an attempt to find the missing teenager. Suzanne Lyall is not in attendance. On March 5th, Suzanne misses a midterm, an absence that the Lyalls know their daughter would never willfully endeavor. With Doug and Mary Lyall's strong urging, Albany University authorities finally call in the New York State Police. The state officials speak first with Suzanne Lyall's dorm mates. The roommates tell investigators that Susie never returned to her dorm on the night of March 2nd. When asked how they could be so sure, the women said that Susie had a large keychain that could be heard jingling throughout the unit when inserted into the door, and on this night, the sound was never heard. Police searched 300 acres of land around the Collins Circle bus stop where Suzanne Lyall was last seen. No trace of the jovial sophomore was found. In May of 1998, Suzanne's Babbage's name tag was found approximately 90 feet away from Collins Circle. The badge was found in a parking lot in the opposite direction from her dorm. Police could not determine how long the name tag had been there, as the area had been well searched prior. Additionally, forensic analysis found no trace of DNA anywhere on the nameplate. Flyers with information about the disappearance were placarded throughout campus and the city of Albany. In total, investigators explored 270 potential leads, but still had no idea where Suzanne Lyall was. Suzanne's parents, Doug and Mary Lyall, were adamant that their daughter would not leave on her own. But how could they be so sure? Suzanne was an exemplary student at the time of her disappearance, but just like any collegiate does, she worried about her grades. Susie had told her boss that the midterm she wrote on the morning of March 2nd had gone just okay. She had more midterms to come that week, and she felt that each one was increasingly difficult and worried that the mental challenge of her new school may prove too formidable. Additionally, in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, Susie had complained to her mom about her finances. She was struggling monetarily and told her mom that she was desperate for her upcoming paycheck. Mary offered her daughter a loan, but the independent youth declined the offer. On the morning of March 2nd, Susie withdrew $20 from an ATM. Later that afternoon, when she arrived at the mall, she withdrew an additional $20 from a different ATM. Mary said that Susie was cost sensitive and never withdrew money from third-party vendors due to their usurious service charges. So when police asked Mary about Susie's banking behavior in the hours leading up to her disappearance, her mother had absolutely no answers as to why her daughter would do this. These two transactions, however, were not the last activity on Suzanne Lyall's bank card. On March 4th, the card was used at a Stewart's Shops convenience store in Albany to withdraw $20. The location was 2 miles southeast of Albany University. Mary Lyall said that the location was not in a part of the city that Suzanne frequented. Whoever used the card knew the correct PIN and withdrew $20, just like Susie did on the day of her disappearance. Therefore, police surmised that Susie must have been at the controls of the ATM machine on March 4th. But when they arrived on location and obtained surveillance, their theory was blown apart. The store's loan recorder was trained on the shop's cash register for obvious reasons, but the vantage point did show everyone who entered and exited the store. After watching the tape, police were able to verify that Suzanne Lyall never entered the convenience store on March 4th. Her bank card, however, was used on location at 4 p.m. that day. Police scoured the footage from this time. They were able to identify all of the individuals who entered the store during this key time frame. Investigators worked to exclude these individuals with the idea that whoever remained had to be the one who used the card. The process of elimination worked, and police were left with one individual, the person who they were confident used Suzanne Lyall's bank card that day, the Nike Man. In the video, a man wearing a black hat with a Nike logo emblazoned on the front enters the store at exactly 3:58 p.m. He heads in the direction of the shop's ATM. He makes no purchase and leaves the store at 4:02 p.m. The footage was extremely grainy and very few identifying characteristics could be determined other than the person was male, African American complected, of average height and average weight. With this scant description, police commissioned a composite sketch and released it to the media. They asked for the public's help in identifying the individual they were calling the Nike Man. The plea works, and though never publicly identified, police are soon face to face with the Nike Man. However, the interrogation yielded little insight into Suzanne's whereabouts. Police did not answer the why or how the Nike man had gained access to Suzanne Lyall's bank card, but did announce that while they could not completely exclude him, they believed that the man had nothing to do with the case. Suzanne Lyall and Richard Condon had been dating since 1994. They had similar interests and both were taking classes in computer science with a view to making a career of the concentration. But despite their similitude, things were not as congruous in the couple's love life. According to her mother, Suzanne had tried to end their relationship on several different occasions. But after Richard became emotional, Suzanne would resign to stay in the relationship. Mary Lyall recalled that 2 weeks prior to her disappearance, she and her daughter had been on a trip when Suzanne asked if they could stop at Condon's house to drop off a Valentine's Day card. Mary later wondered if the Valentine's Day card was actually in fact a Dear John letter, with Susie finally ending her relationship with Richard. When Suzanne went missing, police naturally wanted to talk with her boyfriend. Interestingly, at the beginning of the interview, Richard referred to himself as Susie's fiancé. No one in Suzanne's life was aware of an engagement. Richard had an alibi for the night Suzanne disappeared. He told investigators that he was playing video games with a friend online. He also told investigators that he loved Suzanne and wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. He would never do anything to hurt her, and he had no idea where she was now. Police, of course, questioned the man on the other end of Richard's video game alibi. He confirmed that the two played together that night, all night. When police asked him how he could be so sure that it was in fact Richard that he was playing against, he told police that he was certain because contestants had idiosyncratic tendencies in their playing style, and the man he was facing played just like Richard. Detectives were not fully satisfied with the friend's narrative and doubled back to the boyfriend/fiancé for another round of questioning. Unfortunately for investigators, in the short time between visits, Richard Condon did a complete about-face. He now told police that he had retained counsel and would no longer be cooperating in the investigation without his lawyer present. When asked to take a lie detector test, Richard declined. Like the Nike man, while they could not completely exclude him, they believed that Richard Condon had nothing to do with the disappearance of Suzanne Lyall. With the two most obvious suspects now all but ruled out, authorities had to cast a wider net in their probe. Fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, Albany had a litany of potential perpetrators with a myriad of motives. First, there was the convicted rapist who had violated parole and left the area around the time Suzanne Lyall disappeared. The man was later apprehended in Illinois and returned to New York for violating his parole. Police interviewed him in jail and were able to quickly determine that he had absolutely no involvement in Susie's case. Next, there was a man named John Regan. Regan was found guilty of kidnapping a woman in Connecticut, a woman that he also raped, but the statute of limitations had expired. In 2005, he tried to abduct a female student at Saratoga Springs High School by pulling her into his van. The accosted woman was able to fight him off, and Regan was pursued and apprehended quickly thereafter. Since Saratoga Springs is a short distance from Ballston Spa, the Lyalls' hometown, police wondered if Regan might have also been responsible for Suzanne Lyall's disappearance. Regan refused to discuss the Lyall case with investigators, and no connection between he and Lyall could be established. Police even pondered a connection to a woman named Karen Louise Wilson. Wilson was a SUNY Albany undergraduate who remarkably also disappeared from Collins Circle. However, Karen's disappearance happened 12 years before Susan ever even stepped foot on the Albany campus in 1985. And other than the eerie similarities, police found no connection between the two cases. Another possibility police had to consider came from one of Susie's co-workers at Babbage's. This woman told investigators that Susan had told her about a month before she disappeared that she was being stalked by someone that she did not know. The co-worker said that while Suzanne did not know this person, she also did not believe that Lyall was afraid of them and could not see why or how they would be related to Susie's disappearance. If Suzanne Lyall did fall prey to a random attacker, authorities had no idea who that person was. All right, so here is what I think happened. The case of Suzanne Lyall is extremely frustrating and really demonstrates how one person can truly disappear off the face of the earth in just one moment. And I hope, dear viewer, that if you take one thing away from Suzanne's story and this video, it is this: be careful. Danger is sadly an ever-present reality in today's society, so please keep that in mind and be aware of your surroundings and protect yourself as best you can. All right, with you effectively cautioned, let's talk about the theories in this case. Well, I would love to wake up 6 months from now to breaking news that Suzanne Lyall has been found, hearing that she had chose to leave it all behind and has been since living an idyllic life as a mom in some quaint town in the Empire State. I just don't see it happening. Susie was an intelligent woman with big plans for the future. Even if she was struggling in March of 1998, her problems were relatively trivial. I believe that this adversity was more a blip on her timeline than a life-altering catastrophe. So no, I don't think that these concerns were enough for her to walk out on her promising life. Next, the boyfriend, because it's always the boyfriend, right? Not this time, I don't think. Richard Condon was a peculiar individual, and even the most rose-colored accounts of their relationship showcased an engagement rife with insecurities and breakups. But even so, I don't believe Richard killed Suzanne. Why? Well, I guess it boils down to one key fact for me. I believe his alibi. So if he did kill her, I would then have to believe that he hired a hitman. And while possible, I just don't think Little Rich is the type. Additionally, if he did in fact hire a hitman, he could have furnished himself with a rock-solid alibi. He could have went to a Knicks game, a Rangers game. He could have traveled to Manhattan and took pictures with the naked cowboy himself in the middle of Times Square. But he chose to play video games with a friend, and online at that. I believe that in the cases of true crime, a nexus between bad boyfriend and cold-blooded murderer is too often transgressed. The two are mutually exclusive identities with no intrinsic connection. And while they can be one and the same, and often are, in the case of Richard Condon, I don't see it. So once again, I'm ruling it out. Next, in the interest of time, the rapist who fled to Illinois, John Regan, and the abductor of Karen Wilson. No, nope, and no chance, ruling them all out. So with that, what am I left with? The Nike Man. Earlier in my video, I had said this. Police did not answer the why or how the Nike Man had gained access to Suzanne Lyall's bank card, but did announce that while they could not completely exclude him, they believed that the man had nothing to do with the case. What? How? According to everyone in her life, only Richard Condon and Suzanne Lyall knew the PIN code to Susie's banking card. We know that this man used the card with the correct PIN code, so you got to make it make sense to me. How can this person have this information and still have nothing to do with the case? Even in a scenario where this person is not responsible for the disappearance of Suzanne Lyall, the Nike Man would still have to have had some contact with Susie in order to acquire her PIN code. I can't get past this connection, so I believe that on the night of March 2nd, 1998, Suzanne Lyall arrives at Collins Circle on the Albany University campus. A man sets his sights on her from across the parking lot. A man with ill intentions. The Nike Man. He walks up to the sophomore and asks her for help. His daughter, he tells her, lives on campus. She doesn't. And he needs assistance finding her dorm. He doesn't. Susie is helpful by nature and agrees to be the man's escort. However, as the pair walks past his car, the lost stranger turns capable abductor and reveals a gun. The black-hatted man says that if Susie screams, he will shoot her on the spot. If she cooperates, she will live. Suzanne makes the unfortunate decision for the latter and enters the vehicle under ransomed protests. The kidnapper drives to his apartment. When they arrive, he gives Suzanne the same mortal ultimatum before the two enter the complex. Susie remains quiet as the two walk the empty halls and enter the unlit chamber. In the apartment, Suzanne Lyall experiences a gambit of barbarity. The monster devastates the young woman with hours of confinement and abuse. When the torture finally subsides, Susie tells the wretched man that she has fulfilled her promise. She has cooperated and asks her attacker to go home. The darkened man stalks up on the victim. He lowers himself onto a soiled mattress and kneels over his victim. He goes back on his word in the most hideous way. He strangles Susie and takes her life. In the time before sunrise on March 3rd, 1998, the man removes the lifeless body from his apartment and conceals the dead build in the rear of his automobile. The Nike Man drives far away from his apartment to the Crescent Bridge that connects Albany and Ballston Spa. Here, he coldly sends Suzanne Lyall into the murky winter waters of the Mohawk River below. Doug and Mary Lyall grieve the loss of their daughter gravely, as the two fully believe that Suzanne Lyall is dead. Determined, however, to have something positive come out of their daughter's disappearance, the two became activists, founding an organization called the Center for Hope. In 2003, Doug and Mary are even present when President George W. Bush signs Suzanne's Law, the statute named after their daughter, which raises the age at which local police must inform the National Crime Information Center of a missing person from 18 to 21 into existence. In 2008, the Suzanne Lyall Campus Safety Act is also signed into law. The statute requires the college police departments have plans for investigating missing person cases and serious crimes on campus. Doug Lyall honored his daughter Susie with legislation that will help many young women and their families combat abduction for years to come. However, Doug himself passed away in 2015, never knowing what happened to his daughter. In 2018, New York State Police Senior Investigator John Camp said the investigation into Suzanne Lyall's disappearance is ongoing to this very day. He believes the case is a homicide, saying, "Is there a chance she moved away? It's a possibility, but the reality is she's probably been a victim of homicide." A $25,000 reward is being offered in this case. Thank you so much for listening to the case of Suzanne Lyall. Please be sure to like and subscribe. As I said earlier, danger is all around us, so please remember Suzanne. Be aware of your surroundings and take precaution. You are a very important person that means a great deal to a whole lot of people. So please, please, please take care of yourself because, well, we want and need you here. As always, be kind to you and all else. I'm Brandon Smith, and I'll see you next time.